Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to another episode. I just kind of want to share some of the musings I've had over the course of the day and some of the downloads that I've gotten. One such download, one such awareness is to do with my travels to Washington. I believe in my last episode I was mentioning that I was on my way there. I am here. I've been here for about 2 days now, and I like to say that I travel intuitively, right? So sometimes the places I desire to travel might come up a month or two, or even quite a few months. It might come up for me in advance. But it's not until the time comes for me to actually travel that it becomes more heavily impressed upon my mind. However, I never know why I'm traveling to a place until after I get there. And something that I like to do is to shuffle some tarot cards once I get into the space. Usually it happens even as I'm traveling there, the day before or along the way. I will shuffle cards and I'll ask my angels and my guides, okay, why am I here? And it's never as grand as it might seem sometimes, right? So sometimes it may quite literally be for something grand and amazing, but sometimes it's for the purpose of showing me something specific, or having me meet someone specific, or just coming into a whole nother realm of knowledge just by being in that space. I can't quite describe it, but that's really what happens. So in terms of coming to Washington, on my travels, coming here, became very, and of course, okay, let me back up one more time. Astrology and the astrological movements also impact the things that come up for me. So I am a very introspective soul. A lot of things come into my realm of awareness. I kind of deal with all the clairs, and especially as I'm driving and just day to day, I get a lot of different things that come up for me, and I examine them quite a bit. So a lot of the knowledge that I come into, it's not quite as expansive as a lot of people in higher places, but I feel like I'm moving into that place. I will actually share quick stories in a moment, but I just kind of like something comes up and I just tackle it and I think upon it, and I don't know, it's like I just I soak with it, and so the things that were coming up for me have been themes that I've been thinking on for quite some time, but the themes of home, family, of settling down, this kind of constant battle internally of like, okay, do I want to travel or do I want to settle down and have a home, right? Thinking of my quote-unquote future in terms of having it sooner than I expected and anticipated. Really delving into what my desires are for my future, right? So, do I want to settle down and have a home, now, basically, or do I want to keep traveling? Because those two things are two very different directions. Now, in reality, I would like to have both, but even just diving into, okay, I love traveling for these reasons, but I don't like the instability that comes with other things and other parts. And in the midst of all of that, I also came into this random kind of vision of actually being an apprentice to someone, being able to work with someone one-on-one, not necessarily paying for a course, but actually living with someone or interacting with someone on a kind of like master apprentice or teacher apprentice level, which is something that had never come up for me before. So all of a sudden, on my way to Washington, this is what comes up. And so because all of these themes are rising as I'm coming to Washington, I felt very deeply that that is what the purpose of coming to Washington was for. I'm using past tense, but in reality, I'm here. So there's much more to unfold, right? But all these things, these different themes, usually correlate to what's happening astrologically and with what signs and what placements are happening and where those are in my houses. And I don't know, somehow energetically, I just always seem to be tapped into that on an energetic level, even when I don't know what's happening. So I think some movement was happening, I think in the moon phases or something was happening with like fourth house energy. And 2 days ago, or a day ago, I lose track of the days so easily when I'm traveling. But I shuffled some cards. This is the second time I had shuffled cards concerning this trip to Washington. And I kid you not, I got the exact same cards. And I will share them with you. It was from my herbal astrology deck. And the kind of words or themes that I got were initiation, guardian, psychic healing. There's definitely one other one. I think community came out the second time, and there was something else that had to do with like psychic foresight. It was foresight. So those set of cards came out twice in 2 different readings, and the second time around I began to recognize that perhaps this apprenticeship may not even be a physical apprenticeship. This might quite literally be me withdrawing even deeper into solitude, but connecting deeper with my guides and my angels on a more personal level. I have also had several like migraines, like crown chakra, third eye aches and pains over the past few days that I haven't experienced for quite some time. So, and that was around equinox time, spring equinox time. So that felt like a download / upgrade of like DNA and just an upgrade energy altogether. So, and that happened like 2 days in a row, pretty much around the equinox. So now I feel almost like I've been upgraded. I feel like I am moving into deeper claircognizance, even more so. And my story, which may seem a little silly, but I was absolutely in shock by it. So I use the app Duolingo, and it's not sponsored or anything, but I'm using it to learn French and to also brush up on my Spanish. And I was taking a French quiz on the app, and it came across 2 sets of words that I did not know. Now, of course, I've been using the app I only recently picked it up again. But there was, like, these 2 words I would not have known because in the lessons that I'd been doing, those words had not come up, at least in several weeks, if not from, like, the year ago that I picked up the app. And I kid you not, 2 of those words, 2 out of 3 of them, I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. But all of a sudden, I kind of either, for one of the words, I saw the first two letters, and I just started typing. And I kid you not, I got the spelling correct, but the, what is it called? Noun? Adjective? I think it's the adjective, was wrong. So it was like la chaussure, for shoes. But I had put les chaussures because I didn't know what I didn't know what it was, but the word was correct. And I was like, there's no way I would have known this. The second thing was something else. Again, another word I wouldn't have known. And I kind of saw the letters appear in my head. And I just started typing. I didn't see the full word. I just started typing. Again, it was correct. Wild. The third one, I will admit, I was definitely in my head too much because I was like overthinking it. So I think if I had like stepped out of myself again, I would have been able to get it correct. But that was so incredible to me. Definitely not the first time it's happened to me. I've had multiple experiences like that, but back then I would have like second guessed myself. Things coming up for me psychically more easily. Again, I've said before, I kind of deal with all the clairs, but it feels like they're being strengthened. So I've been kind of looking at that psychic healing card, and the revelation that I got was like, it's very possible that although I would love to meet someone physically, and be able to learn from them and be able to work with them in terms of herbology, or herbalism and like witchcraft, it's also possible that it could come in the form of me connecting with one of my angels or one of my spirit guides and being personally kind of taught. And I said all that to say, along with those cards that came out in my reading, I was also guided to look up the astrocartography of Washington. So astrocartography, I'm probably not going to explain it perfectly, but it's essentially like looking at energetic ley lines based on your astrological charts when you were born. And each ley line is basically connected to a planetary aspect that kind of indicates like somewhere along that line you may experience something like in regards to love, career, and these might be places that you might want to relocate to, or when you're nearby one you may experience something. Interestingly enough, Sedona falls on my sun ley line, so it definitely makes sense that a lot of my growth spiritually and a lot of my rest came when I moved to Sedona from New Jersey. So anyway, when I was looking at the ley lines for Washington, the two ley lines that are closest are to there's one that crosses through close to Seattle, which is where I was, and there are two that kind of intersect. Technically they go into Idaho, but they are very close to like the northeast of Washington as well. So I am kind of moving in that direction. Again, I don't know what will unfold, but just having been guided to look at that and having been kind of guided to go that direction anyhow, I feel as though I'm going in the right way. So I know that was very long and drawn out, but I did really want to share kind of how being led intuitively has brought me this far. Okay, so that was one musing I had for today. One kind of set of revelations that I had over the past few days. Another revelation came actually through a dream I had this morning, and to kind of summarize it, Basically, it was a dream with a former friend that in the dream we were at a gas station, and this person came up to me. They had a vehicle. Now, we don't live in the same country, but they had a vehicle. They were here in the United States, and we were at a gas station, and they came to me to ask for gas money. Now, in the natural realm, in the 3D, and in our actual experience, I have given this person money plenty of times, and it was something that I always did out of wanting to help. And in the dream, I actually almost did actually give them the money. But towards the end, I almost came to myself and I was like, you know what? No. I can't enable you, basically. And I had so many revelations from my own personal life as I kind of deconstructed that earlier this afternoon as I was driving, where I kind of realized that in the natural, I had given to this person a lot, again, out of wanting to help, out of, wanting to support them, wanting to help them get through difficult times. And it was something I've done quite naturally. But something that was also exposed for me was that I was quite literally conditioned by my parents to give without question, and to give and give and give, even at the detriment of myself. That was a pattern that I've literally been in for years, because of how my money was treated while I was working, while I was in school. And, I was basically told to contribute arbitrary amounts for arbitrary things. I was never given specifics. I was simply meant to give and give and give. Just, I guess, having the understanding that it was going towards a household, going towards other things, but I never knew specifics, right? And the key part was that if I didn't give enough, or I didn't give a certain amount, I was basically being selfish. If I kept amounts for myself to spend how I saw fit at certain times, I was being selfish. And so subconsciously, I was being conditioned to give even when I didn't have enough, or even when I wasn't able to, quite literally. Like, even when it would hurt me, I would have to give. And I reflected on my relationship with this past friend and realized that I would inconvenience myself a lot of times for them just to make sure that they were okay, even when I was not fully okay, or even when I was not fully in the green myself, And in the dream, having come to the point of being like, you know what, no. That is almost like I learned a whole lesson. Almost like learning a karmic lesson in my dream realm, basically, because the eye-opening feeling that I had, like, if someone were to come up to me and tell me that they were giving all of this money or whatever to someone at a detriment to themselves, whether it be their energy, whether it be their time, whether it be their peace of mind, I would 100% tell them to not do that, right? I would tell them to prioritize themselves and focus on themselves. And just realizing this, like, a lot of times I give amazing advice because I just have that level of wisdom, but it's like when it comes to myself, I don't hold myself to the same standard, right? It's like the same rules don't apply to myself, which is something I was aware of at some point, but today was really the time where I looked at it and like, wow, I really have double standards in a negative way towards myself. Because if anyone else were to come to me saying any situation or problem, I would give them this advice. But in my own situation, would I take my own advice? And that was like, wow, I really have to learn how to put myself first. And this may seem like an epiphany, and it would be something that I thought I knew really well, but saying no isn't being selfish, right? Putting yourself first or wanting to take care of yourself first is not selfishness. And again, in the realm of talking to someone else, that would be my truth. But I haven't yet accepted that as my truth, as something that's true for me, right? It's almost like everyone else, I'm allowed to give to everyone else when they need it, but I don't expect the same in return, and I don't expect anyone to do the same for me. And yeah, so this has really forced me to look at how I treat myself and look at how I approach giving for myself, because I am a generous person. I always want to help and give where I can. Something that came up also with like how I give free advice to friends, I give free encouragement. And it's not to say that I would ever charge them for that, right? But just recognizing that these things that I give for free, these things that I give freely, you know, if I wanted to, that would be something I could monetize. But for me, encouraging others is not something that I see as a price tag. Or it's not like I give advice, I give a lot of my energy towards people, and they may benefit from it, right? But they may never take that advice to heart. And therefore it becomes like, okay, well, I've given you the advice, I've given you the encouragement you needed, but if you don't do anything with it, then how does that help me? Like, I don't get to see you thrive from it. That I think is something I might have to think about a little deeper, because I really wouldn't want to withhold encouragement or withhold advice, but I don't know. We shall see. That's definitely something I have to dive a little bit deeper in. And then one more musing that I had that I want to share with you was this idea of having, like, going through something or experience something multiple times. And we tend to see we tend to treat these things as lessons. For example, if you've been in multiple bad relationships, I will always say, always look at both sides, right? Always examine yourself as well as the other person. Don't just judge the other person as being the problem. Always judge yourself just as equally. But in the midst of that, like, sometimes I think we beat ourselves up when we go through the same things with the same people or different people time and time again. And it's like, why didn't I learn my lesson? Why didn't I grow from this? Why am I going through the same things over and over again? And the kind of revelation that I got with that was that it's not necessarily about ending something or completing a lesson. Sometimes things come up again and again for us in different people, in different places, in different situations, for us to, for one, strengthen our discernment. It's like strengthening a muscle, right? We have to see these things from different perspectives so that we can understand how to approach it at a later date. So, for example, right, if I've been in one relationship that ended and that person had narcissistic tendencies, and then a few years later, a few months later, I'm in a similar relationship that on the outside seems really great. And then later on it ends, and then I realize, wait, this person also has narcissistic tendencies. Shouldn't I have already have learned from that first experience what not to what not to do, what not to accept? Shouldn't I have walked away sooner? Well, if you're looking at it that way, sure, right? But sometimes you have to see traits in multiple different people to understand how it functions, or how it appears, or how it disguises itself, right? You have to take the good with the bad. Sometimes relationships, as much as they hurt or as much as they bring pain, they also bring growth. They also bring learning. They also might contribute something positive into your life. And also recognize how you've changed between each step or between each situation, right? So who I was however many months ago or years ago, I wouldn't have been able to get through the second relationship. I have new perspectives. I have a new energies. I am a new person, right? I have had new experiences. And so I just want to encourage you not to beat yourself up when you see cycles repeating in your life, because it's not necessarily that you aren't learning. It's not necessarily that you aren't completing cycles. It's not necessarily that you're at fault. Sometimes the universe brings things into our lives over and over and over again so that we can approach it differently, or so that we can see and gain new perspectives, right? So in a way, it is a lesson. It is lessons that keep coming up, but it's not necessarily something with a final destination or a final checkpoint. It's something that will keep reappearing, and each time it comes up, you have different eyes to see it, right? It's almost like, this is a very funny example, but, me doing my taxes, I filed my taxes myself. I've done it for years, from the first time I ever had to file. This amazing supervisor in one of my first jobs, literally, he told me, literally the day taxes were due, I was freaking out. I was in university at my job, and my supervisor was like, don't go to other companies, because a certain app was trying to charge me a whole lot of money that I didn't have, and I could not understand why. So I filed for an extension, and he told me to go on Free File fillable forms, which is the IRS form, and to do it myself. And it took a lot of trial and error, and I've done it for years, and each year it's a new trial and error. A lot of but anyway, basically this year I put everything into all my forms on everything. I put in all the information a few weeks ago with the awareness, okay, I have a few more weeks before taxes are due. Cool. At that point, I went to submit, and there was an error, and I did not know. I could not for the life of me figure it out. Okay, now comes today, which is 2 weeks later after I've been traveling, I've been driving around, and I open it up again, and fresh eyes, fresh perspective. I am looking and reading the descriptions now. I'm reading things specifically, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's literally telling me right here. Now, I'm sorry. I know you should be reading every single line. I know. But sometimes I'm rushing, okay? Sometimes I'm like, okay, I know what to do. As long as I'm just looking for those bolded parts, those key parts where the numbers are supposed to go in, and that's it. And today I read a little closer, fixed that problem, went to submit, 2 more errors. Okay, the first thing is like my address, and I'm like, well, I'm putting it in. For whatever reason, my zip code would not stay in the box. Then I realized, okay, in the foreign country part, for whatever reason, I had tabbed down to like other countries. So it was almost like I was filing as if I was in another country. So fix that. Closed my computer. Came back to it a few hours later. There was another issue that I couldn't quite figure out what on earth was wrong. It kept saying it was wrong or incorrect. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Okay, the first thing I did was put zeros in all the empty spots where I didn't have anything. Went to submit, still the same error. Oh my goodness. And then, okay, now I'm reading a little closer. And I'm like, oh my God, this box isn't supposed to be a 0, you know? And that changed completely. It went from owing to a refund, which, beautiful. But then a whole nother issue popped up for me, because now I'm like, this is great. This particular return is great. And hopefully I'll get a confirmation that everything is all good within 24 to 48 hours. The whole nother issue was like, oh my gosh, I think I may have filed wrong last year. So now I'm just like, oh no, I have to amend my return from last year. Now, I don't fully know if I did something wrong, but having fixed what I did and having looked through my return from last year, I'm like, I feel like I have to go back through this. Now, I don't quite know if I can. I know I can, but I don't know if I can with this year's return. I have to wait for, I think, my response before I can even make any changes. And even then, I don't know if I can do it electronically. Like, if I had known before I pressed submit, I probably could have, but who knows? Well, I don't know. So now I'm just like, that offers a whole realm of possibility, because it would change a lot of things for me, basically. So now I'm like, okay, wow, look how this is something I've done or gone through in terms of taxes a few years in a row now. I should be an expert at it. It should be something that comes easily. And yet, every single year, there is new battles, new struggles. It's the same exact document, but there's always a different situation for me. But the funniest part is, like, just in the number of times I went onto my tax document today and saw totally different things each time. That goes back to my point. Like, sometimes it's not necessarily about the fact that something keeps coming up. It's that each time you're meant to see something different. I no longer identify as a Christian, but when I did read my Bible, I don't want to say religiously, but when I did read my Bible regularly, right, I had read through the entire book at least twice, I think, through like every chapter of each book. And one key thing that you would notice is that each time you read a scripture, it could be something you'd read 100 times, 1,000 times, but sometimes it just, you read it and it looks completely different. It sounds completely different. The interpretation is completely different. It applies to your life completely different, right? So take into account what you're going through. Take into account what you've gone through, what you've experienced already, and appreciate that because of who you are now, you're not the same person you were when you experienced the last thing. You're someone new. You have new ideas. You have new philosophies. You have fresh eyes and a new perspective. And I think that's the greatest indicator to appreciate your growth. When you see another lesson or another cycle come up for you, appreciate how far you've come since the last one, first and foremost, and then see how all those past things affect how you approach it now, right? Something you may have considered a red flag a year ago, 2 years ago, it's coming up again. Now you may not even give this person the light of day. Or now you may choose not to reveal as much about yourself because you recognize those markers, right? So use lessons, use cycles as indicators that you are growing, because chances are each time they come up, you aren't going to experience the exact same thing. You're not going to do the exact same thing. You're not going to respond the exact same way. And that is where the perfection lies. That is where the beauty lies, right? And that is everything that I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to join my Patreon community, patreon.com/sunflowerrenee, and you will hear from me in the next episode. Bye.